This is what you need to be like. Aggressive, destructive, rude. And when we find this Experiment 626, you'll finally have the chance to become all that you can be. So get ready, my cluster drones. You have a long trip ahead of you. Today on the Comic Book Report, Lilo and Stitch, Volume 1, Ohana. Stick around and check it out. Aloha everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I cannot wait to talk about another Disney-based Dynamite comic here. We're going to be finally looking at the Lilo and Stitch series from Greg Pak. In this little hardcover released, collecting Volume 1, Ohana. Lilo and Stitch has always been a property I've enjoyed, whether it's from the original film, the television series, when he pops up in video games, merchandise, or what have you. And when I heard they were coming out with this comic book series, I admit I was curious. I'm really excited to review it for all of you today, but before we do, just a quick thank you to those at Dynamite Comics for sending this book in exchange for a review. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume are written primarily by Greg Pak and penciled by Julia Giacomino. The comics in this volume were published by Dynamite Entertainment beginning in 2024. The volume itself collects Lilo and Stitch issues 1 through 4. And finally, this digest-sized hardcover edition has nice glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 104 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that Lilo and Stitch collection from Dynamite Entertainment. Right from the jump, I did mention it earlier, but this is a digest-sized hardcover. So while we have some beautiful art here and a fun little story, it is a bit smaller than your standard edition releases, like a single-issue comic book or a trade paperback edition. For your convenience and reference, I will do a size comparison with a trade paperback shortly. Before we do, however, just a quick look at the spine here. We got the publisher, the title, and some of the creators here. I would say this is all pretty standard for spine work, but it does look good on a bookcase, and I do like that we have so many of the colors retained from the front cover. The hardback book itself is quite nice. There is no dust jacket, however, so that should be noted as well. The hardcover does seem to have a bit of a glossy sheen to it, which I do enjoy, and overall I think it's pretty well made. On the back of the book, we have some of that same gorgeous artwork we can expect throughout the collection, and a brief description about the book, what it contains, pricing information, and of course the all ages age rating, which I can definitely attest to. I do think this is really general audience friendly. I do have a couple of young kids, and I was able to read this collection to them in part, and that was a really fun experience, and I do like that Dynamite caters to even these age groups. Now that we've examined the exteriors, I did want to spend a moment to go over the book's binding. As I mentioned, this is a glued binding. We do have a little bit of gutter loss, and I think the binding overall is a tad tight, but it really didn't impact my reading experience in any way. The gutter loss is still very minimal, and I do think overall this is pretty well put together. No complaints for me, and I just wanted to showcase it for all of you prospective collectors out there. And with that out of the way, I want to go ahead and do that size comparison I mentioned earlier. So to do that, I'm going to set it next to the Darkwing Duck Foul Play trade paperback I got recently from Dynamite as well. I do plan to review this title on the channel, although I'm not sure when in proximity to this video. So if you haven't seen it yet but you're interested, stay tuned. That Darkwing Duck is a standard size trade paperback edition, so it is the dimensions of a single issue comic book. And in my mind, that is the standard size, that is the benchmark by which I compare all other books. So to that end, this Lilo and Stitch volume I'm calling digest sized. It is a bit smaller in just about every dimension, as you'll see. I'll try to do it in a couple different angles so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the exact size as the Disney Villains Maleficent collection I also am reviewing on the channel. Again, not sure exactly when I'm releasing, but they do size up exactly on the bookcase for those interested. Now we'll go ahead and do one final look here at the overhead shot, just again so you can compare them to the trade paperback sizes and see where it comes a bit short. Again, even for a small volume, I do think it's very well put together, and I'm excited to talk about it, so let's go ahead and jump in. After some nice kind of blue end pages, we have a title page, publication information page, creator breakdown, and then we have a nice little chapter break followed by the issue 1 cover, and then we're off to the races with the first issue. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the first 4 issues of the ongoing Lilo and Stitch series from Dynamite Entertainment. So this is really the first full story arc for this series. And what I like about it right from the jump is that we get a complete story beginning, middle, and end in this one small volume across these 4 issues. And at the very end, we do get a nice little bridge or teaser for a future story to come. I think this is really fun for people that like Lilo and Stitch, are interested in kind of an all ages, family friendly kind of comic, and who want to get going on an ongoing run that doesn't just have a one and done feel. I did really like this book. I am a fan of the film or sequence of films. I even watched some of the animated series once upon a time. So overall, I am familiar with this intellectual property, and I do think that that helped to a degree. As far as, is this new reader friendly? Do you need to watch the movie first? I would say the only thing you need to enjoy this book is to have watched the original Lilo and Stitch, as this whole series takes place sometime after the events of that movie. The series kicks off in this alien environment where we have this race of kind of, how do I describe this? Kind of mechanized robot creatures that are basically on the hunt for experiment 626, believing they can use his DNA to help soup up these robots to make them more aggressive and invulnerable and more Stitch-like in nature. So they're going across the galaxy trying to find this creature. Then we go ahead and jump over to Hawaii, where we have Lilo and Stitch playing games with Pleakley and the doctor who created Stitch. Nani's running around, her boyfriend's around, and it's just kind of this idyllic, fun scene, but it's not before too long that basically these alien robots come into a collision course with our happy little family, or Ohana here, and we're thrust right into the action. Essentially, these robots endanger Stitch's family, so Stitch basically leaves and goes on the run, hoping the robots will pursue him and ultimately that he can lead them away from his family, not wanting to put them in any more danger. And that's really where the kind of inciting incident of this whole book starts, and really has the overall plot built in right in this first issue. Essentially, Stitch is trying to stop these robot aliens from hurting his family, but he keeps having to run further and further away from home, which really just breaks Lilo's heart, and the rest of them ultimately start their search for Stitch. And that's really the shape of these 4 issues. Essentially, you have Stitch going from one location to the next, trying to stay ahead of these robot aliens and keep his family safe. And we have Lilo wanting to just try to find him, is always kind of one step behind him, wanting to come into communication with him, wanting to be united as a family, and that's kind of really, again, what this plot is really about. Along the way, we have some really fun moments with these robot villainous characters who have a lot of kind of funny aspects to their personality as well. They want to absorb and take samples of Stitch's DNA to basically enhance their programming, and along the way they do get little snippets and do become closer to Stitch in both look and ability. But what's funny is throughout this, we also get to see a lot of Stitch's humanity. You know, this character grew so much during that main film that we get to see really his tenderness and his service-hearted nature, his compassion on full display. So there's this kind of feeling throughout this book too is, okay, if these creatures do absorb more of Stitch, what are they truly getting? Because Stitch is so much more than what he was designed to be. He's so much more than a weapon. He's a really tender creature. And that leads ultimately to the conclusion of this first volume, where we basically have Stitch going to just allow the robots to take his samples, believing that they're going to expose and become more like Stitch in the good attributes as well, not just for the power and destructive potential. And I really like that. I think that this was a really kind of sophisticated plotline that was packaged in a way that was accessible to all ages. We also had a lot of fun little moments throughout this journey where we have Stitch kind of joining a Comic-Con and trying to become like a stuffed animal mascot. We have him at a film set for these amateur filmmakers. We have him in the outback helping a kind of wildlife preserve kind of guy or warden. I really liked that. A lot of good twists and turns here. And ultimately at the end of this book, we have him reuniting with his Ohana, his family, before the Galactic Empire basically requests Lilo to basically testify on some kind of galactic tribunal or something. I'm not really sure, but that's the teaser into the next story arc. And that's essentially the story and overall shape of this first volume of Lilo and and Stitch Ohana. On the art side of this, I really think the art is absolutely fantastic. All the character models look like they jumped right from the film, and I really loved that. I love that these characters are almost pitch perfect, exactly like what I saw on the big screen. I do think we don't have as much of that watercolor background feel as we do in the film, but the character models themselves are just flawless. It's breathtaking. The coloring as well is vibrant and just larger than life. I think that this is a really faithful interpretation of these characters, even if we have a kind of sequelized feel to the actual plot line. I really do like that we got to see the character growth in those characters on display in this first arc. I think that this is a really fun treat for fans of the film or the general characters. I really did enjoy my time here, and I do think even though it's for all ages, me as a 30-something-year-old still had a blast, and honestly, I was grinning from ear to ear reading this. At the back of the book, as you saw, we have a full kind of variant cover art gallery where everything's thumbnailed and we have kind of a listing of who drew what for the cover art, but I really like that we have all of these at the back, even if they're not a full-sized reproduction, just to see all the different covers and different creators that came out to do their own covers for the series. It was just really fun, and I love that Dynamite included it at the back of this collected edition. Anyway, that is Lilo and Stitch Volume 1 Ohana, and now all that's left to do is to give this book a grade. For this worthwhile Lilo and Stitch sequel that I found to be so thoroughly entertaining throughout with some beautiful artwork, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Lilo and Stitch Volume 1 Ohana a B. This is certainly an above-average comic collection for me. I really enjoyed it, and I don't always read comics that are appropriate for all ages, even young ones, but I really made an exception here, and I even read it with some of my young ones, and I had a blast. The characters all looked like they came directly from the movie, and I think the characters felt true to themselves at every possible angle. The story was surprisingly rich across 4 issues. I love all the supporting characters we got, even if they were only in it for a few pages. I think that this series is ripe for potential, and I honestly would read more in this line. Let me know if you've been reading Lilo and Stitch. Let me know if you picked up this volume and what you think. I would love to get more opinions on it. And let me know if you've read any other Disney-based properties from Dynamite Entertainment. I'd love to get some good recommendations there. I definitely want to land here by saying a huge thank you to all who have made it this far in the review, and another thank you for those at Dynamite Entertainment who have sent this copy for review. This was a ton of fun, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, a comment, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.